Welcome to Tigers Untapped, a Bluff City media podcast. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Trey Lasley and TJ Willis. Now, let's get to the show.
Yo, 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 yo.
My brother.
We're going to have to start.
From another mother.
We're going to have to take Trey off the show. We can't call him a co-host because he apparently hates beer. He keeps ditching us on Monday nights and going on vacations with his family. It's like the seventh episode we've had without him.
He's been on a lot of vacations, and I wish I had. I mean, y'all both work. Whoa. Okay. Before we get started on talking shit about Trey, what are you drinking tonight, man?
This is, let's see if you can see this. Gator Patrol by Grind City. It's a lot. It is a tangerine cream sour. I don't like sours.
You do this every time. You do this every time. You pick a beer that you don't like when it's just you by yourself. I don't understand it.
Well, here's the problem with that is that I've never had half of these beers. Actually, 99%. I've never had them. So I'm learning on the go. It's just you also get to a point where it's like you're just desperate for a beer that's new that you haven't done on the podcast. So you just got to do it. And we've never done this one, so I had to do it. And it has a little background to it. We'll touch on later.
Oh, okay, cool. Are you? I didn't know if it was like in honor of the upcoming game, LSU versus Florida this weekend. Trying to will a Florida victory to happen. I don't know. Do you even follow SEC football very much?
I mean, look, I was just at a wedding where a man walked up to me with his phone. It was like, look at this. They're about to do it. They're going to do it. And I'm like, who's going to do what? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Ole Miss is about to win. And he showed me like, I don't fucking care, dude. Like, I mean, I care. Like, it's cool, but
yeah,
it's cool that a top team's going down. But like, I don't care. I don't watch Ole Miss. But
well, dude, it's good to be back with you, man. It's good to be back with you. I haven't had a chance to be on the show. And what does that say? It's backwards. What does it say?
Forget yourself backwards all the time. It says I got that dog in me.
I got that dog in me. That's what I'm talking about, Kirkland.
That's that like Costco that hot dog, dude. You kidding me?
Where'd you get that? Is that Costco?
No, I wish they did. I'm pretty sure there's some copyright infringement here, but it is the Costco hot dog sign that they have up, and someone just took it and threw it on a shirt, and I was like, I do got that dog in me. I get that dog in me pretty much every time we go.
I'm a big fan of Costco. I used to work at Costco back in the day, and so their little sundaes, their little berry sundaes that they have are so fire. They're so good.
Well, as we've learned, I'm allergic to strawberries, so I don't get that. I just get the ice cream. If I ever feel like being a bad boy, I get that. I just get the ice cream.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. Yeah, Trey's out this week, so I'm in. So this show's going to go to hell in a handbasket pretty quick. So
I don't know. Trey's pretty good about that too. So I think we're even. Let's start off with basketball. We played a basketball game this week. Our second basketball game, Kenneth.
Yes, we did. Hardwood Tigs. It's so interesting to me because I have to, I try to make banners based off of the way that you guys talk about things. And so I would normally say Memphis Tigers are down 2-0 on the season. But that's just not the way the Tigers Untapped team rolls, man. Y'all Hardwood Tigs are 2-0. They played well. They were in UNLV in Las Vegas playing against the Rebels of UNLV, and they won the game.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I was not able to watch it because I was at a wedding.
Yep.
I was trying to check in as much as I could. My wife was the matron of honor, so I had to I had to be pretty zoomed in up there. I think that was the husband duty, so I wasn't able to watch much of it. I do know what happened. I do know we won.
Yes.
I have checked the box score. I know the box score doesn't always tell the right story.
Well, let me ask you this: based on the box score, what was this? You didn't get to watch it. I did. What was what are some of the storylines you picked up from the game based off of just the box score as a whole?
Well, it seems like we were pretty good offensively in the second half again. The same thing with the Mizzou storyline. Looks like we came back. I guess we were only down 4, is what the
Yep.
box score would point out there. But we were a second half team. Looking at the box score, we're back to nope. Oh, I'm starting to sense a trend here, Kenneth. 72.7% from free throw, free
Yeah.
throw. From the free throw line. That is hopefully a new characteristic that we have brought in with this team. We often struggle with those, so I like that. PJ Haggerty apparently is still getting to the charity stripe.
Yeah.
9 of 12 from the free throw line. Love that.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's just a lot of the quick things that stand out. I'm sure there's something you are looking at there. There's one more stat, but I'm gonna let you tell me what you picked up, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I think the storyline initially, as you look at the box score and it played itself out, you saw it in the game. Um, this team has an identity already, and which is unique to the Tiger program. I think under Penny Hardaway, usually they play their best ball later on in the year. They start to gain that identity, and I still
Mhm.
think that the Tigers have a long way to go in terms of like their final product on the court, right? Like what they're going to ultimately end up looking like.
Yeah,
But I think one of the main parts of the identity that I'm talking about is they have a very clear and distinct rotation that they play with. And if you are not a part of that rotation, you might get some spot minutes, but you're not going to get many minutes. And that is an absolutely unique thing to Penny Hardaway's basketball team.
yeah,
I mean, you look at the box score from the UNLV game. Um, the starting lineup: Nick Jourdain, Dane Danger, PJ Haggerty, Tyrese Hunter, Colby Rogers. Um, all of them were at 32 minutes or above outside of Nick Jourdain. And the only reason he wasn't is because he had 4 fouls in the first 3 minutes
Mhm.
of the game because college refs suck. And um and so
You're
he
exaggerating there, right?
no, he had 2 fouls in the first half and then got a foul pretty
Okay.
quickly into the second half. And they just, I'm telling you, man, like I, I said this on the bluff this week. I've said this on any show that I've been on. I am just grossed out by college reffing. I just think it is obscenely
Yeah,
awful. And I think that they play more of a role in the outcome of games than they should, and I think it is
sure.
absurd how bad it is.
Well, yeah, we saw it in the although an exhibition, the Alabama Memphis game felt like it was foul every 2 plays. Like
96 free throws were
down
called.
the court, foul every time.
And it was the same way in this game against UNLV. It just felt like it felt like they came out
Mhm,
and said, and you see this so much in college basketball where it's like they come out at the beginning of the game and they're trying to set a tone, right? The refs are trying to set a tone for the game and basically kind of get control of the game. Because I will say this, man, college basketball has a tendency, if you let them play like free flowing, it gets out of control and it can get super physical,
sure.
dangerously physical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think refs tend to try to. It feels like to me these refs are trying to set a tone immediately, and by doing
Mhm,
and you're taught as a ref, as someone who has refed before in the past, you're taught you do that by blowing the whistle. And so that first half, it was almost every possession ended with a blown whistle foul call on both sides. Both teams had, I think, within like the first, I think about 10 minutes left in the first half, they were both in double bonus, and so
um,
it just radically changed the dynamic of the game. Because then in the second half they came out and you could tell the refs were like, okay, now let's let them play some ball. And
yeah,
the offense raised its level on both teams. I mean, there were some multiple possessions back and forth where there were shots hit, where there were tough plays made, where it was you could tell they were in a flow. And in that first half, there was just zero flow whatsoever. And
sure.
The Tigers front court got like noticeably impacted in that first half by the fouls that were called. You had Dane and Nick starting. Nick had to come out almost immediately, brought in Musa, and then it was just kind of let's just try to fill in the gaps as we can. Even though Nick had 2 fouls, just kind of instead of it being Musa and Dane switching out for each other, it was for the rest of the game. It was Nick and Musa coming off and on trying to stay in the game. And Dane played a lot of minutes because of it, which is fine. Dane played a great game, but it just it radically changed the game. And that's the reason why Nick only had 25 minutes, because he was negatively impacted by foul calls. And a lot of them were just fouls that were like loose ball fouls that were,
Mhm.
two guys bumping into each other. And so they had to call something, and it just radically impacted the game. Didn't like it. Wasn't a fan.
So you touched on some. We've touched on this like probably 2 or 3 times. I feel like now, um, the depth with this team is not great.
No, it's not.
Perhaps is maybe the way to word that. I think that you shouldn't get into a situation where you're cycling through Jourdain, a Danger, a Cisse. But really, after those three, like you and I were kind of talking before then, because I was looking at the box score and I was like, okay, well, Musa played 11 minutes and
Right.
Dane played 32 and Nick played 25. Who the hell else played? Right? They've got to figure something out. But
Yeah.
um, they don't
Yeah.
really have somebody who can play a small four in a pinch of a minute. It does that I can think of at least, and we kind of talked about it. So
Well, there were a few times where you saw the three-headed guard lineup of
sure.
PJ, Tyrese, and Baraka out there. Even though
Hmm.
Baraka only played 8 minutes, most of those 8 minutes were in the first half.
Yeah,
Baraka didn't play much in the second half. Nick played a majority of his 25 minutes were in the second half. He was able to stay out of foul trouble. They didn't call as many fouls, and so he was able to play extended minutes in the second half. The first half, he just didn't get to play much, and so in that first half, you did see some Baraka, Tyrese, and PJ with maybe Colby at the small ball four.
yeah,
And it wasn't noticeable, like it wasn't like a noticeable, like, oh my god, this is just not a good situation. It worked. It
sure.
was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, and I think we've seen them go with the smaller lineups, and it actually helps them be a little bit more aggressive on defense. Which,
Yeah.
to your point, the defense has been very good all year long, right? We saw that
Yes.
the constant aggression in the Missouri game. And one thing I noticed when you were asking about the box score, like what's one thing I noticed that maybe we didn't touch on yet? UNLV shot 40, not well, we'll round it up to 40% from the floor,
Right.
and that's after a their last game shooting 57%, but that was against like Alabama A&M, so like
Yeah.
not exactly apples to apples there with Memphis versus Alabama A&M. But you couldn't convince me that Memphis's defense was giving them fits and maybe making them take some wild shots or some poor shots there. So I don't know, 40%. It's pretty good if you can hold your opponent to shooting 40% from the floor, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean they held them to 40% for the entire game, and the Tigers shot 72% from the field during the second half. Right, so they
Yeah.
ultimately were able to take the lead and extend the lead,
Hmm.
because of their offense started clicking. They were able to get up and down the floor more, and their defense was pretty consistent throughout the entire game, and it's been that way even in the exhibition games.
Yeah.
We talked about this, a little bit, but I really do think that this Tigers team has a more developed identity than any this early in the season than any Tiger team I've seen Penny Hardaway have so far. Right, like they definitely have an identity, and it
Hmm.
all lies on the defensive side of the floor right now. And I think that is something that if you were to ask Penny what he wants his teams to look like, you know, they they are matching what he wants them to look like. He wants them to be a high level defensive team, and this team plays with the intensity of a high level defensive team. They really do at this point.
Would you say that's directly going back to your comment on how good the defense is playing this early on? Would you say there's direct correlation between everyone showing up early and getting more reps under Penny and playing together? Do you think there's some direct correlation there? It seems like it's kind of an easy. correlation, but maybe we're assuming too much there.
I think it's two things. I think it's the roster makeup. I think it's who
Mhm.
Penny targeted in the portal this year. I think he targeted guys that he knew that he could that would buy in on the defensive end of the floor more so
Yeah,
than I mean, he's talked about this in the offseason. You know, he went and recruited a roster that was heavily weighted on the offensive side of the ball, right? But what you found with that is you found a team that allowed the offensive struggles or even maybe some of the guys not getting the shots they felt like they wanted out of the
yeah,
offense dictating or being allowed to impact the way they play defense. So yes, I do think that the first part of it, the roster makeup, lends itself more to he went out and got, just like your
better
shirt says,
fits.
just like your shirt says, they got that
Hot
dog in
dogs.
them, right? And so they got some dudes who are willing to play defense. I mean, Tyrese has been known as a guy who can get hot on the offensive side, but he's been
Mhm,
known for years at his time at Texas and his time at Iowa State as a defensive guy. Musa Cisse, Big 10 defensive player or Big 12 defensive player of the year. Um,
mhm.
Dane Danger has proven himself out to be a guy who is willing to play defense. And the Tigers have not had many of those guys who have been willing to play, intense defense throughout a game, even when their offensive game isn't going well. Right. Like, so even in that
Yeah,
first half, even in the first half, you saw it where it was like, there was a level of yes, there was some struggle on the offensive side of the ball, and mainly because the flow wasn't there, maybe mainly because the whistles were blowing nonstop. But it never once impacted their willingness to play defense. And so that's one thing, the roster makeup. And number two, I do think that them having been in the system since June together has played a
yeah,
role because you're already seeing. I think it was last year. I think it was like I don't even think it was like during the non-conference schedule. I think it wasn't until they got to the conference schedule where Penny was able to start really implementing that uh, that press that he loves to run. Um,
yeah,
and they're doing that for extended periods of time already in November. And so yes, you got guys who are willing, but you also have guys who have been here, and so Penny's been able to implement different schemes on the defensive side of the ball more so than he has in the past.
yeah. I definitely think there's some correlation with the guys getting there, getting reps,
Yeah.
playing with each other. I think some of that plays into it. Anything else from the UNLV game?
Yeah, let me think. I'm
Only
interested to
13
see.
turnovers. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I can appreciate that. You just have I I'm just I think PJ Haggerty has the potential to be one of the most impactful players that Penny has had in his time at Memphis. Like, he is just without even shooting a three. I mean, he was 0 for 3 from the 3-point line in this
Mhm.
game and still scored 29 points in a college game. None of those points came from, the free throw line, but he plays in such a way that
Yeah.
it fits what Penny Hardaway you've heard him talk about in post game press conferences and in midweek press conferences that he does, this idea that their offense is designed to they want to get into the paint as much as possible and and he has guards now that are willing passers, and not only that, he has bigs that are willing passers. Look at Dane Danger's uh,
Yeah, I saw that.
line. He had 4 assists in this game. I will take a Tiger big man having 4 assists in a game
Yeah.
all day, every day. These guys are
Yeah.
showing a willingness to pass out of the paint, and that's coming from the bigs and the guards, and that is a unique thing this early in the season for a Tiger team.
Yeah, and I think if going back to Dane's stat line, for example, once we get into American Conference play,
Oh
um,
god.
if they're able to get the ball into Dane down low, he's backing down the guy, and as soon as soon as someone else kind of collapses in on him, if he's able to get that outlet pass
Yes.
from the post, you got a wide open Colby Rogers or whomever it may be
Yes.
sitting on the perimeter. You're really just setting yourself up, for some good plays and good passing there. So I'm all for it. I didn't watch the game again. I can only
Yeah.
assume that's probably what was happening there was
Well,
Dane
and I
working
just
down low, kicking it out.
and he had a couple of plays where he, faced up on the baseline. He's
Yeah,
got quick feet. He's got super
he
quick feet
does.
in the post.
He does.
People like to compare him to Jordan Brown, bro. Like, come on, it's not even comparable in terms of the athleticism that Dane has been showing out there. But
I'm
his
guilty of that.
he has shown almost too willing of almost to be too willing to pass. Right, like
Yeah.
he's a play. Penny has called him um not necessarily a cheat code, but like definitely a guy who is willing to be a playmaker out of the post. And that
hmm
is when you're talking about having, you know, all love to him, but Malcolm Dandridge as your main post guy for 4 years, um, Jalen Duren, who phenomenal big man for the Tigers, but when he was out
Sure.
there, like a lot of his stuff was coming off lobs or a lot of his stuff was coming off offensive rebounds or then later on in the season he started shooting a lot from mid range. Like he got really good at that.
Sure.
Dane has shown a willingness to pass out of the post that I've not seen a big do. And it opens up so much for Penny's offense because they're in the paint and he passes out to the 3-point line and they're wide open. I will say I'll just say this, man. Like one of the biggest takeaways I have so far with this team is that we can look at the box score and say, man, they were down at half, right? They had another bad half. They had a bad half of shooting, but they got really good shots in that time period and or during that first half. And so when they went into the half against UNLV, when they went into the half against Missouri, there was a level of like, I wish they weren't down. I wish they would make the shots. But they weren't getting bad shots. They were getting really, really wide open shots and just missing them. And you look at the mean, you look at the averages, everything comes back, right? Like everything kind of, it's either if it's really bad for a little bit, you're going to see an uptick. If it's really
hmm
good, it's going to come back down to the average. And you've got some guys who can shoot on this team. You got some guys who can make buckets on this team out of the guard position. And so I love what I see, not because it's clicking on all cylinders right now, but because they are running things that are getting them good shots. And I think it's a long game and it's a long season. Those shots will start to fall in the first half because they're getting good shots.
Yeah.
They're not taking wild shots at the end of the shot clock. They're not one-on-one shots. They're a lot of kick out from the paint, boom, wide open, just missing. I think Colby had like 3 3-pointers in the first half that he shot that hit the rim 3 times each. Just do on both sides, like in and out, hit the rim multiple times. I mean, it was so close. And then he got hot in the second half. So
That's how it works.
I'm impressed with what I've seen so far, TJ. And I'm sorry for kind of dominating this whole
No, you
basketball
watched the game. I didn't.
portion of it.
Right. I think it,
I I just think it's so easy to go to like look at the grand scheme of things and go, okay, there are major positives to take away so far. And that's a willingness to defend, an intensity on the defensive end that we haven't seen in a couple of years for this Tiger team, and an offense that is producing good shots for their on the offensive side of the floor. One of the big things, I'll say this, in the past, if you had to game plan against the Tigers, what would you normally say a coach would say, this is what I'm going to do on the defensive end of the floor to game plan against the Tigers?
I would crowd the paint and force them to shoot a three personally.
And do you know how you would do that? You would run a zone, right? You would
Yeah.
run zone on them.
Hmm?
Anytime against Tigers in the past, if you went man on man against them, a lot of times they're going to break you down and take you to the basket. David Jones was in particular perfect at that. He just was able to like physically just outmatch guys that he played against last year, and he had a great season because of it.
Yep.
If you're talking about trying to stop the Tigers team, for years it's been just run a zone against them. This Tigers team, while they're not hitting a lot of their shots from the outside right now, one of the things that they're doing that is so unique and such a pleasant surprise is that they are getting really good shots out of against the zone defense because they are attacking the zone. They are you got PJ Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter who are willing to attack the weak spots of zones. And so they're not just passing it around and setting ball screens and setting this or flashing high to the post and getting the ball there. They are attacking the paint against zones, and it's forcing the zone defense to stretch and stretch and stretch, and then just swing, 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 open shot to the corner. You're seeing a lot of that. When they start to make them, this offense is going to look really good if they continue
Sure.
to do that. So
Yep.
those are things that I'm seeing so far. I like what I've seen so far. They're 2-0, which can't complain about that.
Yep.
But they're playing good ball, man.
Good. They're going to need it, and hopefully they will have Tyrese Hunter. Did he come back? I know he hurt his knee. That's like the one thing I did see is that he was holding. I think it was his knee or ankle, maybe.
He hurt his knee. If you go to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel, you'll see the Memphis versus Missouri game highlight package that I put together.
Yeah.
On a layup at the end of the game, he kind of hyperextended his knee on a layup that put him up by
Hmm.
11. That knee bothered him all week, and apparently at the same time, PJ had some knee issues because if you also look at that package, you'll see Musa fall into his knee pretty early in the game in the first half, and adrenaline kept him going to the Missouri game. But apparently, him and Tyrese are both out for 3 days during the week leading up to the UNLV game, and so Tyrese. I don't remember him getting hurt in that UNLV game. He played pretty much the entire game. I mean, he played what was the box score? He played 35 minutes out of
Yeah,
40.
he played
So
35 minutes. I remember the one thing I did see was him kind of holding his leg. I didn't know if it was serious or not, but I obviously was not able to watch
well,
the
it was
game.
serious enough. His knee injury or Penny said it after the game. He had a kneecap issue
Mhm.
that they're monitoring.
Mhm.
He that knee situation kept him out of practice all week, but he was able to come out and play on Saturday. So against UNLV.
Okay. Good. 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 Well, let's move on to Ohio. The Tigers do play Ohio. I believe it is this Friday. Is that correct?
They
Yeah,
play
Friday. Yeah,
Friday.
Friday at 7 p.m. ESPN is giving the Tigers an 89% chance to win on the matchup predictor. And I'm going to be honest with you. This looks like we're playing the 2014 Wisconsin Badger basketball team. Like,
They're
if you
playing
could,
the fighting TJ Willises. That's who they're playing on
well,
Friday.
they're a lot taller. It looks like they are the Wisconsin Badger team with like Kaminsky and Sam Decker, but like the Monstars had stole their powers. It's just what's left over after that kind of situation. Uh, that's a nice way of saying there are a lot of white dudes on this roster. And take
A
that
lot of
comment how you will.
a lot of Haydens and a lot of uh, Peters
But
and
there's yeah, it's
hey, but let's be real though. Ohio was picked to win the MAC. I don't know what that means, but they were picked to win the MAC.
yeah, I don't know what that means. I do believe the MAC is always able to get at least one or two teams in, so it is what it is there. Um, but sure enough, I am looking at it: an Aiden, an Isaac, Ricardo,
There you go.
Nolan,
Uh,
Jack,
Yep,
Marcus with the K. Um, it just this is going to be a smart team that we're playing. Honestly,
they're going to run
um,
really good stuff.
yeah, no. In all seriousness, they it's kind of hard to tell where they're at. Honestly, their first game was not the most challenging against, UNC Asheville is pretty good, but um, they ended up winning 82-76.
Yep.
And that is the same UNC Asheville that lost to Alabama 110-54 shortly before. So I know it's Alabama, so we can't use that as a normal measuring stick by
Hey,
any means. But
Alabama only won against McNeese with your boy by 8 points tonight.
my boy,
Your boy.
He's my boy?
Big ass offer.
Well, I don't know that makes him my boy. I'd like a big ass offer, depending on what it takes. But just looking at them, nothing stands out here too crazy. They do somehow have 4 guys averaging double digits. I think that's something to kind of pay attention to there. I just, in all honesty, I know that Ohio's supposed to be a good team. Like you mentioned, they are supposed to win the MAC. I don't believe Memphis is going to drop this one. Famous last words there. I think that's usually how that works.
Right.
Since I say we should win that, we probably won't.
The
With it being so far out,
the TJ curse, is that what it is?
it is a thing. It is definitely a real thing. I don't know if there's a line out there yet.
I haven't seen a line yet. I mean, the stat, like you said, the stat predictor at ESPN says they're,
Yeah.
heavily favored to win, but I would suspect the Tiger, obviously being at home, would be, pretty big favorites.
That's kind of where I'm looking at
What's the
it. Being at
normal
home games is
line?
bigger.
What's the normal line in college basketball? Is it would a college basketball line go to double digits most of the time, or is it most of the time single digits, or what is it normally?
You can see some double digits, right? I mean, obviously, we can't look
You're
that
the
far in
you're
the
the
future.
better you're the better. I don't know.
Well, I am the donator,
There
is
you
I
go.
think what you mean there. If we're doing
Yeah.
Trey's picks and TJ picks, I'm a donator of things. I'm trying to just find some random teams that are, whatever. Here's North Florida and Georgia, and
Right.
it was an 11-point favorite. So do with that what you will.
Okay.
Obviously, not the best example there, but okay. UCF is a 5.5-point favorite against FAU, and it's at UCF. So you do get some double digits, right? I mean, obviously Clemson is a 21-point favorite against Eastern Kentucky. So you're gonna have them in there, right? You're gonna get them every now and then, but I think in anything you got to think like 13 points is kind of a lot of points here.
Yeah, I mean, 13 points is a big number in college basketball. Like,
Yeah,
you beat a team by 13 points, you've thoroughly handled them in a 40-minute game, without a doubt.
yeah. I would imagine it would be 8 to 10 points, and maybe I'm off kilter here. Maybe if Trey heard that, he'd probably call me an idiot and somehow nail it right away.
He would say something
So
like, "Back in 2001, Tigers
yeah,
were." Yeah, he has some kind of goofy stat to
Rain
bring up.
Man thing. He just pulls that stuff out of his back pocket. So yeah, I don't expect that to be too terribly challenging. I do think the Tigers should win. Again, famous last words. They are a Maction team, and they are projected to win. But
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how it works out. I think the Tigers have enough going for themselves, and seemingly, it doesn't appear that anyone will be stopping PJ Haggerty anytime soon.
God, he's so good.
So, yeah, I mean, he's just got a wiggle to him. I think it's probably the easiest way to explain that.
Yeah.
He's just constantly able to get to the rack whenever he wants, and
Yeah.
normally when you can't be stopped in scoring, you typically win.
So I have a question for you. This is not the fade TJ pick, but your expectation is that Memphis will beat Ohio on Friday night, right? Then they head on the road and they go to play San Francisco before they take off and go to Maui. San Francisco, they won last night. I think they played last night. They beat. Let me look at the schedule real quick. They won. They beat Boise State 84-73. Then they beat Cal Poly by 8 points. Beat Boise State by 11 in San Francisco. A good little test kind of run up before they head out to Maui. Do you expect them to be like? Do you expect them to be 4-0 heading into Maui, facing off against UConn in that first round?
I'm gonna say yeah. I mean, probably right. I don't.
Yeah.
Don't let me act like I know anything about San Francisco basketball. Like I know that they are a good program. You just went through a list of teams that they've played. There are some good programs in there. Boise is typically a pretty good program. I don't know ish about Cal Poly.
Let me look.
I don't remember the expectations. We talked about this not that long ago on the expectations of San Fran and if they were supposed to win. No, not win. What were they supposed to do? I think there were pretty good expectations on them in conference play.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Trey and I actually looking this up at one point. But I think that, let's pretend San Francisco is pretty good. That means they're probably equivalent to your normal top 4 team in the American at times, right? Probably a fringe. I imagine, without looking it up, they're probably right outside of the top 100 on Kim Palm. Just making stuff up off the top of my head. I have no clue.
Let me look.
Kim Palm can be a little misleading, in my opinion, but let's look at totally T-bomb Bart Torvik.
They have San Francisco at 76.
Yeah, okay. This is why I'm always wrong with things. So Bart Torvik has San Fran at 83. At 83rd.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a decent.
Wouldn't you compare them to UAB, right? Like, isn't UAB kind of in that same area, or is UAB in the top 100?
Yeah.
They're not even in the top 100, are they?
No, UAB is in the top 100. Yeah.
Okay.
UAB,
so they're kind of right in that same.
Wichita, North Texas, but before they lost everybody, kind of situation.
Got you.
So they're a decent team, and those are teams that Memphis should normally beat. So I think Memphis should get the win, right? And I'm sure that one of these websites will tell me if I type it in, it'll project what they think the final score to be, kind of situation.
I mean, they obviously have San Francisco a better team than Ohio. They got the matchup predictor on ESPN has the Tigers 66% favorite to win that game. So it's definitely obviously much different than the Ohio game. But
here we go. So Bart Torvik has his estimated numbers, and he has, we joked about 13, but Bart Torvik looks like he expects Memphis to be a 14, favored by 14 here.
Against San Francisco in San Francisco?
No, I'm sorry, Ohio. San Francisco, it looks like Memphis is favored by basically 5 points.
Okay.
So
is that, I mean, heading into Maui, heading into the UConn game, 4-0 is, would you be surprised by a 4-0 start, or is that kind of what you expected?
More or less what I expected, maybe dropping one just to be more cautious than anything, right? I think anytime you expect to go 4-0, like you're only kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed. So I think pre-season I would have said 3-1. I may have actually said 3-1 somewhere in there. I don't expect Maui to go that well, but I think we have some time before we get there and talk about Maui. I think after the Maui, obviously, I think we'll know a little bit more about this team and where we're at, right? Yeah. Just more games under your belt. Good games against very good teams, very talented teams. I think we'll just know a little bit more there, right? So it's kind of hard to just assume.
Yep, I agree. Well, hey, listen, let's talk football next segment. How's that sound? You want to take a break?
Yeah.
We'll take a break. We'll do a break and we'll come back and we'll talk Memphis Tiger football, fade TJ picks, and then we'll get to the beer. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I'm excited for the Grizzlies can be. As you mentioned, you guys are dealing with a lot of injuries, but that's kind of what excites you because you've seen a lot of guys like make a name for themselves. I think Jalen Wells has been like, I am just like wowed by him. I think it was a guy that I didn't know much about. And so kind of seeing him like come into this like fold and like being a starter. And like, I think you're going to have to answer a lot of hard questions, especially healthy again. When you have so many guys that you can like plug and play like that makes it where it's like, oh, this team could be really good. And Zach Edey, I know from being a Grizzlies fan in Memphis, like the big has always been, that puzzle piece that we've been trying to figure out what it's like, and will Zach Edey as a rookie be good? Seeing him play last night, it was like, especially when you think about, like, we were undersized, but how Zach Edey as a rookie can like dominate that area, and seeing connection and the chemistry that he already has with Ja Morant is, to me, that excites me for like what is to come.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
And let's give Jacob Raby a shout out. I know he catches a lot of flack, but he's had a great week since that contract to get renewed. Even that night against Milwaukee, he had a good game. So
since Halloween,
I think he has the highest plus minus on the team, and he's been a plus in every single game since the first loss to the Nets. He's been a positive on the court ever since then. So
I mean, he's been the most. Is it weird that he's been the most reliable guy that we've had out there? The growth that Jake has shown, just in a season's length of games, is really impressive. And considering how like bad he was, like when he got drafted, it's pretty impressive.
Right.
It might be one of the most impressive things Kleiman's done.
Tune in to The Daily Grind with your host, Lute Hatmaker, every Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. I have somewhat kind of breaking news that I wanted to share with you. It's not really breaking, but have you heard much about what's going on in Florida with their men's basketball coach? Todd Golden.
Okay, so it's not Mike White. Okay. I thought Mike White was still somehow there and not fired.
No, Todd Golden. Todd Golden, formerly of, I think who did Todd Golden coach for? For some reason, San Francisco keeps coming to my mind. But he had a really good run with a team a few years ago.
Yeah, it was
maybe.
San Francisco.
Was it San Francisco? And then Mike White got fired. Todd Golden got brought to Florida. Well, it was announced this week by a student newspaper at Florida called the Alligator
The Gator Patrol?
No. No, let me find it. Anyway, student newspaper, student reporter, which is crazy, right? But announced that he was being investigated for like some Title IX sexual harassment and stalking stuff with students at Florida. So anyway, tonight they had a game in Florida, and he got a massive standing ovation from the Florida crowd. Like, you go, Todd Golden. Anyway, wild. I just think that's wild. Anyway.
Standing ovation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there more to the story that we should know? Like, did it come out that was clearly not true?
No, it's not. He's basically saying, which is typical for these kind of things. He's like coming out and be like, I'm pursuing defamation, claims, whatever. Trust the process. It's been a long 4 days. Trust the process. But Florida fans apparently gave him a standing ovation tonight after he was accused of harassing and stalking multiple female students at Florida. So
bold strategy, Cotton.
Bold strategy. Bold strategy. Oof. Anyway, Tigers fried that rice.
No, let's keep talking about sexual harassment at other schools or something. Anything other than that. Brown. What's the most boring rice you can have? Is it just steamed brown rice?
I love steamed white rice. Love it. I could eat a whole bowl of it by itself. So white rice is good to me. Probably brown rice. I would say steamed brown rice is.
I'm Googling it. What's the worst rice?
What's the most bland rice?
Yeah, I think it's going to be just steamed brown rice.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right.
It's definitely not basmati rice. Basmati rice is delicious.
Never had it before.
Oh, dude, you gotta get on basmati rice. It's built differently. It's white rice. It's just kind of thinner and a little bit longer. I don't know. Whatever. Let's talk about the game. It was boring. Super, like right out of the gate, boring, and it's not ideal. Especially after the UTSA loss, where you were, also boring in that one as well. It's not great, right? And I'm someone who's okay with boring as long as you win. So like I'll bitch and complain this whole podcast, and I'm sure my wife is tired of hearing of it. I'll bitch and complain nonstop. But like a win is a win. So like you could have lost the game. That's always what I have to remind myself. But we can jump into the specifics of it, right? I mean, straight out of the gate, Seth had a poor placement on a ball through an interception gave Rice the ball on their own 20. That's not ideal. Fortunately, since they're also awful, I guess I shouldn't say that. Since Rice is awful, I think they only kicked a field goal there, so they're up 3-0. They had another drive delayed, or extended. I think Matt Hudson had a late hit on the quarterback.
Yeah.
And that set them up for a field goal. So just a bunch of field goals in the first quarter, right?
No, Memphis didn't score a single point in the first quarter.
Yeah, no. It was super boring. The only thing that really happened in the first quarter for Memphis that was of note was Mario Anderson getting smacked.
Dude.
Yeah, I think he tried to hurdle. I can't remember what happened. I think he tried to hurdle or
something.
Tried
to hurdle, yeah, and got crushed. I will say this. There were a lot of really, really heavy hits in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was that hit. That was hard. I thought maybe we'd get helmet to helmet on that. We didn't. Mario Anderson was slow to get up. A defender was slow to get up. Mario eventually obviously jogged off. He was fine, as we'll touch on. I mean, really all we could do is talk about the second quarter, and I think we'll be good for the whole game, honestly.
Yeah.
Because once the second quarter came around, I think it was still only 3-0 or 6-0. Is that correct?
6-0 coming into the second quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's when you start getting the production of offense. I think we put up 200 yards in the second quarter alone. First big play, Seth's about to get smacked in the face, and he releases. Honestly, I don't want to call it a dime because Blancumsey was wide open, but incredible touch by Seth here. Just drops one perfectly in, and Demir just drops it, just loses it. I don't know what happened, but just lost it. And it felt like it was the first time you got anyone open the entire game. I thought Mario had a couple really strong runs, plays where he was battling on the ground, making it 7 yards, and then fighting another 7 yards through contact, like really fighting guys off. I think I looked it up, and he racked up like 80 or 90 yards in the second quarter, which made up for like 44% of all of the offensive yardage for the Tigers in the second quarter. Which, it's a lot for a running back who's sitting there just taking it. I mean, they went on a 6-minute drive on this drive that I'm referring to, which did result in a touchdown, 12-play, 77-yard drive. I thought they did some fun things in the second half, honestly. In the second quarter, excuse me. We saw them go up tempo, and I think that's of note because every time they went up tempo, they were able to move the ball. Rice was frantic. They didn't know what to do. They had a trick play. We kind of got away from trick plays there for a bit, it seems. They had a reverse to Jamari Hawkins, who has good speed, so you're able to put him in space. That's good. They went 5 wide. I've been waiting on them to go 5 wide nonstop. It's actually something I thought we would see more, but I guess with Sutton's injury, maybe that's why they got away from it. The combination of Sutton going out and with DeWosier getting hurt kind of early on, your quote unquote receiving back is out.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they weren't able to go that way. But, I thought they did a couple interesting things. They get a touchdown to take it to 14-6. It was the Seth has like a triple option is probably the easiest way to word that, because it looked like he was going to hand it off to Mario Anderson right up the middle, but then he kind of ducked down like he was going to run it and then just kind of popped up like Tebow, like a very Tebow-esque, like jump pass kind of situation to Brendan Doyle to get that touchdown there to go up. I guess that was the first touchdown.
Yeah, that was the first
second
touchdown to
Mario.
Brendan. Yeah. Second touchdown was Mario for 10 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to work off the memory there, but
They came on. I mean, they had 2 straight possessions that ended in touchdown. One to Brendan Doyle, one to Mario Anderson.
Yeah, and then the second one, that was one the scary moment for Carmelo Anthony. Good Lord, Carmelo Overton. Which when it happened live, it didn't seem like it was anything too crazy. And by live, I mean like going back and rewatching it because it wasn't on. Yeah. You didn't see it live, right?
It was weird. I was sitting in the I was sitting in the end zone at the fifth, like in the middle, like underneath the right by the field goal posts, and I was filming the Tigers coming off the field, and out of the corner of my eye, all of a sudden I see a Tiger just fall over in the middle of the field, and I looked real quick, and it was like, number one, I didn't know who it was because he got crowded around pretty quickly. But as I was thinking about it afterwards, I was like, I saw him running, and he just like fell over, like it wasn't he was running off the field and just fell over, and then all of a sudden, obviously, the entire training staff, medical staff, paramedics, everybody involved gathered around him, and that's when you were like, this is not good. Not good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, as you mentioned, anytime you see someone just collapse like that, you're like, oh no, what's happening right now?
I'll be frank with you, like based on like what I saw out of the corner of my eye, I was like, is this a DeMar Hamlin situation? Like where he just, and it's terrible. I don't, but it just, the way he fell.
What do you mean by that?
The getting hit like it wasn't an injury.
Oh, you're talking about like
a medical emergency type situation. That's what scared me, is that it was a medical emergency type situation more so than an injury.
I'm with you.
And I mean, obviously it ended up being a medical emergency. They had to take him to the regional 1, but I didn't see what happened. So I was like, is this, I hope it's not a medical emergency and not a injury,
Sure. I'm with you now. In the hit itself, like you mentioned, nothing looked crazy. You just kind of see him fall over, and even when they play it back, you're like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was actually, it seemed pretty serious. I think on Monday today, Silverfield announced that he was released from the hospital. He's back at the facility. He is going to go through I think they said go through a couple more tests to be evaluated for a spinal injury. So speedy recovery to Carmelo. I mean, that's scary stuff. I don't expect them to rush him back by any means.
No, I would suspect not.
Which, yeah, of course. After that, obviously kind of a tough thing to follow up on, but Memphis was able to get the ball rolling again. Couple plays, actually. It looks like the big screen pass down the left side to Mario. I think it was a pass to Blankumsey, and then the Mario rushing touchdown, right?
Right.
So 5 plays, 73 yards there. So another effective drive, right? That obviously after the first drive being 6 minutes long, the second was a minute and a half. So you can start to see, I know we talked about up tempo and how it worked already in the 6-minute drive. It doesn't seem like that would be an up tempo drive, but it was, as was the 1 minute and 30-minute drive. You do give the ball right back to Rice. And I'm going to be honest with you, this freaking wide receiver they have is unbelievable. Sykes.
Yeah. It
felt like it was the entire game. You could just throw anything up to that dude, and he was just going to go up and get it at the apex and pull it down. Like it seemed unstoppable because it was pretty much the entire game that was happening. You just highball it, high point it, throw it up there. He's going to go grab it. It seems like we have white Megatron in our conference, and that's impressive. So they immediately go right downfield. They score. I think we're at 14-13. Memphis gets it back with not much time on the clock. I think about 30 seconds is what it was. And I did the math wrong. It was 5 minutes and 44-second drive earlier, a minute and 40 drive, and then now they took 36 seconds to go 6 plays, 51 yards to get the field goal right before half. So after interception, punt, you do finish on 3 drives, being able to score.
Yep.
The issue there is you just weren't able to stop them, and I think that and going stagnant, right? Because as we talk about it going forward, you're going to notice that the offense pretty much just kind of stops, and I don't understand why this is a thing. And we've talked about this before. It's getting kind of old. I don't know why it continually happens this way. Let's see. The first quarter, if you look at it, Memphis put up a total whopping of 24 yards. Obviously, the interception at the 20-yard line isn't helpful. Right. Second quarter, 201 yards. Third quarter, 54 yards. And the fourth quarter, 87 yards. So doing the absolute bare minimum, folks. Surprised we actually came away with a win here, if you want to be frank with you. This is definitely a game in Silverfield teams of yesteryear that you would lose, right? Those close battle games that they would always find a way to lose. It does seem like we've turned that around. We don't do that too much anymore outside of UTSA, but they just kind of smacked us in the mouth. It wasn't like it was a game where we were sitting there flirting with them all game for the most part.
Is that a product? Let me ask you this. Is that a product of growth with the Silverfield team, or a just playing in wars with bad teams that can't finish? Because a lot of those games, right? Houston, you had Houston in the conference, SMU in the conference, you had UCF in the conference, and anytime you go close with those teams, they're good enough to where they can ultimately put you away. But it seems like they're winning a lot of close games, but they're winning a lot of close games against teams that are just probably not equipped to finish a team the way that the other teams that we would lose to are.
Yeah, and I think you can maybe not excuse is the word I want to use there, but I think you could understand struggling with a Houston, a USF.
Good teams, yeah.
Yeah, teams that are talented nonetheless, maybe poorly coached, but talented, right? They're pulling in 4 stars. They're getting transfers. They're getting very talented team, or building out very talented teams. But then you just, through poor coaching or maybe the inability to execute, you're losing those games.
Right.
But that's not the situation here. Like, without being disrespectful to UTSA, they're not, right? Yeah. How much have we heard about them only having $40 in NIL, and how Memphis just had so much more? Like, UTSA's over there handing out BOGO coupons for those little mini hamburgers at Walmart or at McDonald's, and they're saying, "Hey, come play for us. You get this little BOGO burger coupon." And they're like, "Oh, I guess I'll do it." And then they just, relatively whipped our ass on the field. So, it's hard to say what it's coming down to now, right? It does feel like it is a good combination of maybe the inability to execute. I do think there are some plays where you can clearly look at it and say, okay, if that lineman just moves to the second level, as opposed to trying to double team someone who's already blocked, that 5-yard run could turn into a 70-yard run because there was no one else inside. Right. Or if Seth puts that ball a little more on the outside or a little more on the inside, it's a catch by Kobe and it's not an interception, right? Because that's what we saw, right out of the gate. Poorly placed ball, interception. Later on, he airmails one to Rock, and Rock's immediately like, dude, that's uncatchable. Like, what are you doing? I can't, I'm good, but I'm not that damn good. So there's just little things here and there, and I'm not trying to put it all in Seth. He gets that naturally as the quarterback. I do think that a lot of it comes down, there's a combination of play call versus what we see as the play, right? It may look like we're just handing the ball off up the middle, but in reality, it's RPO. And Seth knows that I've got, 6 dudes plus a running back in the box. The defense has 5. If this defender steps in when I go to hand it off, then I can hit the out route. I can hit something on the outside for the pass. If he stays, I just got to hand it off, and I'm counting on the numbers to match up. It's either going to be 6 in or 5 in, right? You're going to have some type of mismatch there, or at least man on, and you should win those out. That's the way you look at that. And looks like a handoff, but in reality, there was some option there, and we just see a boring ass handoff every time. So,
do you think that? I think the biggest distinction, we talk about growth in that regard, like of them being able to close out close games instead of losing those close games. The two that I know, there's probably a ton more of these games that happened where the Tigers lost close games that they were,
sure,
ahead in. But the two that I remember specifically that just automatically come to mind are that Houston game where they were down, where they, I think ultimately were up by like 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and lost the game or something like that. Is that am I wrong on that?
No,
And then,
unfortunately, you're right.
And then the same thing with the UTSA game where they were up by 3
game.
touchdowns at home and ultimately lost the game. The difference that I see is that in those games, they were very clearly ahead, right? Like very clearly in control of the game.
Yeah.
And we're dominating on both sides of the ball. And I guess that's my biggest, I think, concern about where like some of the slide that I've seen this year is, yes, they've won some of these games. And yes, let's not forget they are 8-2 on the season. So it's not like we can sit here and complain about that too much, but it is very rarely against these supremely subpar teams compared to the Tigers do they ever feel like they're in control. And that's the part that concerns me the most about kind of what we've seen this year, is that it's like they're in literal dogfights and wars with teams that they have no business being in wars with on a week in, a week out basis.
Yeah, and we talked about this with basketball. Penny finally put together a team where the puzzles fit. The pieces of the puzzle fit, right? You have guys that play your style. They're willing to work their ass off on defense type of situation. I think the issue here, and it's hard to say this because I feel like you are kind of consistently changing coordinators on defense a bit. I think the situation is they get into recruiting just bodies, just having guys back there that are competent enough. And then they'll start to run zone defenses, any cover 4s, and guys will be fine. But the moment you put a guy who is primarily a zone corner in man situation, he gets toast. And we've seen it time and time again. I think DK Ross, I think Ross is good in man. I think Kobe Minor's been good at man. Granted, he's been kind of banged up, but and this isn't to say anything poorly about these guys, but when I watch DJ Bell, I think DJ Bell is good at zone. I don't think he's great at man. Julian Barnett, RIP, he's not dead, but he's not on the team anymore. I don't think he was particularly good in man. I think you could put him in zone and he'd be okay. Big bodied corner, 6'2". They can cover a lot of space just with their length and things like that. They were never good in man. I don't know what it was. They could never cover. And I think we get caught up in that a lot. And there was some combination with Rice running good stuff. We would be in quarters and they just have a guy who just kind of drifts off and finds a little gap, making the defender have to choose between 2 guys in his zone. Little things like that. So maybe our tendencies are too obvious on defense, right? Every second down, Memphis is in zone for sure. I know we spend a lot of time blitzing and things like that, so we are primarily in zone, probably more often than we should. But
yeah,
maybe they change that going forward. I don't know. I don't think you can do a damn thing about it until you get Kobe Minor back healthy and full speed. And then you can put those 2 dudes out on an island and let everybody else try to figure it out.
Yeah. Obviously, this weekend is the Battle of the Bones, Memphis versus UAB, final home game at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium for a lot of the seniors, specifically Seth Hennigan's final home game at the Liberty Bowl / Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. We can talk about Seth next week in terms of just his, how we feel about Seth and moving forward, like the pantheon, I guess, where he is in terms of quarterbacks, because he's going to end up holding pretty much every single record at the University of Memphis, largely,
Sure.
I think, due to the fact that he's been there for 4 years. But Seth has been a consistent producer for the Tigers over the last 4 years. But it is the Battle of the Bones. It is a legacy rivalry for Memphis in terms of UAB, in terms of, especially in the basketball side of things, but with football as well.
Yep.
Are you excited still about these games, or how do you feel about it? Are you motivated to go see them play, or where are you at with it?
I do think a lot of the air has been taken from everyone's sails, right? We're sitting here at 10-2, bitching about how the season's over kind of situation, and for the most part,
well, let's be technical.
Right?
They're 8-2 right now.
What did I say? 10-2?
You said 10-2.
My bad. 8-2. More or less, it is, right? You can't really reach your goals. It is pretty improbable for you to make the conference championship. I think statistically improbable.
It's impossible.
You obviously, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to make the conference. You're not going to make the college football playoff. And I'll be honest with you, even if Memphis went undefeated, I'm still not confident they honestly would make it. Looking at what Boise's been doing, I think that these teams or these organizations that put together all the rankings, I believe they heavily believe in style points, and I think Boise does it with good style. Boise will hang 50 on you. They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They played Oregon, only lost, tough, super tough, number 1 team in the nation, Oregon, and only lost by a touchdown. And meanwhile, we're about to see someone get smacked around by Oregon. Power 5 teams get smacked around by Oregon nonstop. So, right. Even though they have one loss, I still think that Boise would get in over Memphis, an undefeated Memphis. The strength of schedule just plays too much of a role here at that point in time. But that's all a side note. Yeah, I think so, right? And it kind of goes back to my opening statements that although these last couple of games have been boring as hell, we could be losing them, right? This could be a situation where we are talking about a 6-4 team versus 8-2 team.
Mm-hmm.
We've been there on the 6-4 team, right? We lived
under Ryan
anything
Silverfield,
freaking.
Under Ryan Silverfield, we've been there.
Yeah. 2022, you were just talking about it, or 21, whenever that was. The Houston, was it 21? It's 21 or 22. It's one of those years. I can't remember. I'm not Trey. He would
know
the damn wind temperature off those games. No, man. I think you could lose those games, right? You could be 6-4 right now. So it is what it is. I'll bet you complain. It's not exciting. You're losing fans.
Yeah.
I think all of that is a proven fact, right? People are not happy about all this. But let's say you beat UAB. I don't know if they're going to beat Tulane. Who else we got left?
UAB and Tulane.
That's right. Tulane? Yeah. Let's say you go out, you beat UAB at home, and let's say you stun Tulane. That's a top 25 team on the road. Does that change things for fans, or they just say, is it just kind of whatever? We can't do anything with those stats. Whatever. I don't care anymore.
Let's not forget the Tigers were 10-3 last year heading into the Liberty Bowl, and when the level of momentum that came from that Iowa State win carried Ryan through the offseason and into this season, I think. So I think that if they can come back and beat Tulane, I think obviously that would be a momentum builder for potentially next year. I just think in a lot of ways there's so much uncertainty going into next year with losing quite a few people. Like there's going to be so many players that are going to be gone next year. It definitely feels like a situation where it's like, I think a large part of the frustration is, and I said this on another show, if it wasn't going to be this year, then when's it going to be that the Tigers are going to break through and win an AAC championship, or even finish, or even get to an AAC championship game, right? Like if it's not going to be a year where you have almost everything going in your favor, right? Like
sure,
that, when's it going to be? That would be, I think that's the question that I think a lot of folks have is if not now, then when, and that's tough.
Sure. No, I think that's a very good point. This was the year, and I think a lot was put on this year specifically around you're building out a very good team. You pulled in a lot of transfers. It's your quarterbacks last year. Rock came back. Demir came back. Like, you had all these pieces that came back. An SEC running back who led his team in rushing. He's on your team now. So you're like, man, we have all these pieces. Plus media is kind of pushing stuff. And I think media has a lot to do with this. You pushing in all these high expectations. Like, Memphis is a favorite to make the playoff. Memphis is clearly the front runner. And honestly, kind of pushing Boise to the wayside, I think, for the most part. I think a lot of that sets the narrative pretty high for you. And that's fine. I'm not saying that any of that is wrong. I think all of that is very fair. Memphis should have had that narrative put on them. And they clearly haven't lived up to that hype, right? I think that's pretty straightforward that they have not done that. And they lost. You could drop one, right? I don't think anyone's going to say you can't drop one.
But isn't it
Maybe
even
it's the
deeper
Nate
than that, though? Isn't it even
wild stuff.
Isn't it even deeper than that, though? I think it's deeper in the fact that, like, you saw it just a few weeks ago. The Tigers won a couple of games and were back at like number 31 in the coaches poll, or they were getting top 25 looks in the AP poll. Like, they were still, but yet all Memphis fans were going, man, we've seen the product on the field and it's just not great. Like, it's been relatively like underwhelming in a lot of ways. And so I think that's where the frustration lies. Is not that the fact that, anybody who looks at the box score and says, man, well, they won the game. Okay. Yeah, they did win the game, but come on, man. Like, we know what we saw out there on the field. And the fact is they had to war with a lot of these teams to get those wins. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration lies, and just the reality of the situation kind of kicking in, like, man, this is just not working out the way that we thought it would in terms of the season, in terms of the expectations.
Yeah, but what are we talking about in the grand scheme of things? Like, how much did that change things? And because it's hard to measure that, right? A lot of fans saying the product isn't fun, it's boring. How do you measure that? Like, how do you say this many disgruntled fans are lashing out? They're going to media. They're not going to the games. Is that it? Do you use attendance? Do you look at the attendance and say, hey, this is ridiculous? Because looking at North Texas, there's 24,000 at the North Texas game. You played Charlotte, it jumped up to 25,000. And then you played Rice and it dropped down to 23.6. So we're talking about 1,000 people, 2,000 people swing. That doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal. It sounds like maybe that we were kind of overinflating a couple people, a couple hundred people, whatever the number may be, going to Twitter saying this is boring, but they're not putting their money where their mouth is. We were sitting here looking at attendance and it's not truly changing.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have I said, I personally said, this team is not very fun to watch. And every time I'm in town, if I can make it, I'm sure as hell there.
Yeah. I agree with that.
We're anomalies, right?
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that.
I think a lot of people just, they like to talk the talk, but when it comes down to it, they're still going to show up. I mean, you're still 8-2, right? And I know a lot of people say you can't use the Tiger football of yesteryear, you're ungrateful, Larry Porter years kind of thing. Like, you're like, hey man, we were winning 2 games for a long time. A lot of people get up in arms about that logic. But I think that's why we're here. I think that's why we still have people coming back, and why the attendance numbers don't look that bad. Is the matter of fact is a lot of the Memphis Tiger fans are older generation. They've been through this for a while. They've seen some good teams with D'Angelo. They've seen some shitty teams in between. And they're like, you know what? This is better than what it was.
Yeah,
Even
I agree.
though it's bad, it's still better than what it was.
They're winning games.
Still showing
I mean,
out.
that 100%. Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. I actually think you're right on point with that. Well, they got UAB this weekend, and they head to Tulane. They head to New Orleans to play Tulane to end the season, the regular season. So we'll see what the Tigers do, man. I'll be there on Saturday to support. I wish My wife has forbade me from going to New Orleans. It is Thanksgiving Day. I cannot go, she told me. So I would go if I could, but that'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun to go.
UAB this Saturday at 7. Be there. Don't say you're not going to be there and then end up going anyway, you nerds.
I just want to see. I want to see old boy melt down on the sidelines. I want to see him.
Yeah, that's a guarantee, man. So UAB, I think they're 2-7 on the year. They have one win versus Tulsa, and that's right after they stormed back to beat UTSA, which is the wildest transition of events. But they are completely defeated on the road. They are very bad on the road.
Dude, they were up by how many points in this last game and ended up losing?
That's the weirdest thing. They're so bad.
Yeah.
Which means we should probably win by field goal.
Yeah.
Jalen Kitna is the quarterback. He's been less than great, I would say. I mean, sacked 17 times, thrown 8 interceptions. Jacob Zeno, who was the original starter, he was the starter last year. And I think got hurt last year, then started this year and then hurt his non-throwing shoulder. He is still out, and the Tigers have somehow dodged him the last 2 years in a row. He's pretty good.
He's a good quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. All that to say, there's not much here. This UAB, again, not a good team. Not a good team. Not at all. A win versus Alcorn State, and obviously the Tulsa win we just talked about. Lost to UConn 31-23. Lost to South Florida pretty good. Smoked by Army. Gee, I forgot how bad Tulane put them up. 71-20. This is a basketball score? This is a women's basketball score.
Oh. You know what the line is, right? Have you seen the line? Tigers by 14. 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. I think at one point it was 9 and it went up. It's a bad team, dude. And it's not like they are bad with promise, right? Yeah. It's not like there's something back there like maybe next year they're starting a lot of young. No, they're bad. They're real bad.
They're not Alabama, according to Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, they are not Alabama. I think that is clear.
You got a score? You got a score prediction for the game?
Yeah, I do think this is one where the Tigers actually kind of put it on them. Shocker, Tigers scoring points here. This could be a situation where I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I know it's Seth's last home game, Rock's last home game, a lot of guys, Kobe's last home game. There's a lot of guys. Jonah Gamble, last home game. A lot of guys that have been with this program for a long time. So I know it's just going on a rant bitching about you people saying that you're not going to show up because the team's boring. Just show up. Like these dudes have been here forever, right?
Show
what
up.
Are we doing? Give them that.
This class that's leaving this year is a historic class for this Tiger program. 100%. So please come and support. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's too many seniors that are on this team, dudes that have been around for a long time that you've kind of watched and grow. And then obviously some guys that are new to the team. That, they're here for their 1 year and then they're going to vamp out, whatever. Demir's gone. I'm going through it here. Mario's gone. There's just and Darius Coffey gone. Another guy who's been there forever.
Man, and Darius, that is my guy, man. I love Andarius.
Yeah, there's so many guys on this team that you've watched kind of, I don't want to say grow up per se, but more or less grow up, right? I mean,
did you say Brandon Thomas?
Brandon Thomas, perfect example.
Man,
no, I'm just trying to spitball off guys off the top of my head. So,
yeah,
a lot of dudes that have just really worked their ass off over the years that, they deserve this. So just show up.
Yep.
Let's just get this dub. Tigers going to be 42-17. Tigers win.
Whoa. Big time.
That ain't a guess. That's what it's going to be.
Let's go. Let's go. All right. Let's move on. Let's finish this episode out. We've been going for an hour and 19 minutes.
Dude, it happens sometimes.
Yes, it does.
This is Gator Patrol.
We got to do a fade TJ pick.
Oh, no, we don't, dude. I'm just out here losing money left and right. This is not good for my wallet.
So no fade TJ?
No, we'll do it.
Go with your gut. Go with your gut. Go with your gut.
Well, we talked about this, Kenny. I think I should go against my gut. I should get my gut and then flip that stuff every time. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick to it. Last week I did pick Iowa to beat UCLA. I think it was like a 7-point game. UCLA won 20-17 to beat Iowa, of course. This week, I think I'm going to kind of cheat. I'm going to take Oregon to cover the 14 points. They are the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah.
They're pretty damn good at football. I don't know if you noticed that. They play really well. Well, let's start this. Wisconsin plays well. It's Oregon and Wisconsin, if I didn't make that clear. Wisconsin's been playing well. But again, we're talking about Oregon. It's the number 1 team in the offense, or number 1 team in the nation. Very good on offense, pretty damn good on defense. They put up a lot of points. It just seems like it's a lot of points. I know Wisconsin's been playing well. I'm taking Oregon minus 14. So go ahead and cover that with Wisconsin plus 10. You're probably a lock to win money right there. I'll actually go ahead and move that to a 5 and 8 for me on the year. Go ahead and make that one red.
Oh man! All right, what about that Gator Patrol?
Oh yeah, I went to Gator. I picked Gator Patrol because for UAB is starting John Kitna's quarterback, or John Kitna's son.
What's going on in Florida?
Former Gator.
What's going on in
I don't
Florida?
know.
Some weird.
He's a former Gator. We're putting him on Gator Patrol. So if I can't remember if I said it earlier. It's a tangerine cream sour. It kind of tasted like if you made a no, that's not what I'm looking for. It wasn't great. Whatever. I was gonna say it kind of tasted like a dreamsicle, but there's not enough orange flavor to it. It was more like Tang and beer had a baby. Wasn't great. I mean, if you like a sour, you may like it. You can see the can. It's a standard Grind City can. Nothing crazy here on the Grind City cans ever. It's hard to give them anything too high. Since it's orange, I'm actually going to make it like a 4.8 out of 10.
Dang.
That's just me. I have a personal vendetta against the color orange for whatever reason, and that's not even directly UT related. It's just I don't like it. I'm torn on the beer, mostly because it is a sour, so I want to give it lower, but I try to pay my respects because it's not bad for a sour. I just don't like sours.
Right.
Yeah, I'll give it like a 6.7 out of 10. I don't think I would drink.
That's better than I thought. That's better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's better than probably what I give in other sours. If I look back on this list real quickly, it's not bad. It's just
Not a fan of sours.
Not a fan of sours. It's like this is probably going to upset some people. It's like a fried bologna sandwich. It's not bad. It's just
I like fried bologna sandwiches.
I know. I'm the weirdo. It is like a fried bologna sandwich. It's like not bad, but it's not really. If you're hungry, you don't want a fried bologna sandwich for the most part, right? Not me, at least.
No.
It'll make a turd, but it's not going to make your stomach happy, right?
I love it. Hey, look, thanks for letting me join you tonight, man. I appreciate
Thanks for joining me tonight. I'd have nothing to talk about on the basketball side of things. I didn't watch more than 45 seconds of that game. So I needed your insight here.
Glad I could be here to help. Trey, we miss you, bud. Enjoy y'all's time. We enjoy your time vacationing with family. Come back next week. And what does Trey normally say? Stay for the cold beer.
Well, no, when I say it, I always mess it up. I say stay for the hot beer and cold takes. I, for some reason, can't get it right. So it's come for the cold beer, stay for the hot takes.
And we out. If you enjoyed this episode of Tigers Untapped, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Like and subscribe at Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports.